All right, class, we've done it. We've made it out of the Maya section and we're on to the Aztecs before we head down to South America. So let's get right into this. Um, what I will say is the coverage here, because, you know, we spent 2 months on the Maya. They're doing uh, what would normally be 1 month on the Aztecs, and we're having to shrink that down even a little bit. So um, you won't get as much depth through this section, but there'll still be plenty of new concepts. And you have to be careful not to just carry what you know about the Maya over to the Aztecs. Different culture, different group of people, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so let's get into the PowerPoint here. So first thing to realize is that the Aztecs were an empire, and the Maya never were, and that the Maya lands never came to be controlled. But let's kind of get a handle on what it means to be an empire. Um, Empires are political entities that bring together a diverse and heterogeneous group of societies under a single ruler. So you have this kind of differentiation within the empire, but under a single rule. Now, the Aztec Empire was organized hegemonically, which is a little different than you might have imagined, or when you think of a strong emperor, ruling with an iron fist. This isn't quite that. So if you look at the slide, you see before the kind of empire formed, there were independent city-states right here at the top of the slide, right? And kind of interestingly, the social structure was one of kinship flowing into politics, meaning, you have, at the base here, at the core, households, and then village headmen, who are going to be kind of lineage leaders and stuff. And then sort of city states kind of controlling them. And before the empire, there is probably a more decent analogy to the Maya, right? Because it's these independent city states vying for power. And we'll get into how the Aztecs or Mexica. I'm going to refer to them as the Aztecs in this course, just because that's what your book is doing and the things that I'm reading to prep. So we're just going to run with that term. But during the empire, you have the emperor overseeing everything. But what makes the empire hegemonic is that it's indirect control. So the different areas of the empire are sort of left to their own devices, but are made dependent on the core, on the emperor, through tribute relationships. I've heard this described as almost like a mafia control. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we'll protect you, you pay us, and we're all good. The Roman Empire was somewhat hegemonic, especially on the outskirts of the empire in Africa, et cetera, where they would just let things roll how they were rolling. It's just that, the tribute and taxation just kept flying upwards, up the societal pyramid, as it were. So yeah, the emperor in Nahuatl is known as Huetlatoani, Supreme King of Kings. And the slide, by the way, is chronological. So you have this and sort of step 1, step 2, step 3. And we'll get into Kalpishki and other different kind of political entities, figures, when we get further into these lectures. But basically, sometimes the kind of city-state control head was problematic, and they would, the head of the empire would take that person out and put someone else in charge, and that was a steward or a kalpishki. So there you see in, I don't know if this is going to come out in the video, but it's clear on the PowerPoint. You have kind of a egg white on top of cream white, but just kind of the basic reaches of the Aztec Empire. So we're going to come to this Codex Mendoza a few times. The cover, this is the front of it, depicts the founding of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital. And it's founded in the year 1325. In the Aztec calendar, it's the year 2 house. Something about Aztec chronology, so they're not using long count dates, but they're using what we might term a short count. It's kind of like us, instead of writing 2020, if we just write 20. Instead of writing 2021 or 2019, we just write 19 or 21, right? And so that's fine insofar as when we're matching it to, the historical record and we have that tight correlation. But when you go further back, their short count years are going to repeat every 52 years. And so that can create some, did this thing happen 104 years ago or 156 years ago? Maybe we're not sure, that sort of thing. Okay. So can you find the year 2 house on the slot? There's 2 house. So it goes house, rabbit, reed, and flint, and that's the cycle. So 2 house, 3 rabbit, 4 reed, 5 flint, 6 house. And notice they're still using dots for 1, but no more bars for 5. They just keep putting dots and dots and dots. And so you can go all the way around this, and this is chronology here. And we'll go into the the prophecy of the Aztec, of the eagle landing on the cactus later in the lectures. So the Basin of Mexico in the post-classic is, as previously mentioned, sort of all of these kind of city-states. You see a bunch of them here kind of vying for power and creating alliances, etc. We're familiar with that type of situation. And in 1428, you get a triple alliance that leads to kind of a more empire situation. But before we get there, let's talk about how the Aztecs or the Mexica got into the Basin of Mexico, got into that area. So it's not well understood archaeologically. It's not well understood historically. It's not even well understood among the Aztecs. So the idea is that they come from a place called Aztlan, and nobody knows where Aztlan is. In fact, even you'll see in the book, the Aztecs had forgotten where Aztlan was. And so anyway, they migrate into the area, and they're kind of making their hay and doing their thing. And they end up coming up against Culhuacan in a warfare scenario. You see it there circled, and they lose. And the Culhuacanos have them in kind of a subservient position and make them go live out at Tizapan. So that's all fine, well and good. The Culhuacanos, by the way, are the descendants of the Toltecs at Tula. We didn't really talk a lot about Tula. Tula is one of those places in the post-classic that flourishes and is a little bit Maya, but not really. Anyway, Tula falls apart, and the Culhuacanos are immigrants from there. So they come from Aztlan, and they get settled at Tizapan. I don't know, it's not very nice land, you'll see. And they're vassals to Culhuacan. Almost think of them, again, in a subservient relationship, but also paying tribute and but kind of working as mercenaries for them. But they one spring, you'll see they decide to have a festival. The Aztecs do, and they ask the Culhuacanos, would your daughter participate in our wonderful spring festival? And the Culhuacan ruler says sure. And so she goes, and they sacrifice her, and the head priest flays her skin and is wearing it around when the father, the ruler of Culhuacan, comes for the actual festival or whatever. And obviously was just the tiniest bit upset about that. And so this created a war, and that the Aztecs won, and then shift to Tenochtitlan. Let me see here. Whoops. So we're going to see them. Oh, I think I jumped. Okay, so this is starting the next section. I'm going to stop this video here. I don't want to get them too long. We will start with the sack of Tlatelolco in the next video. See you there.